Crash Bandicoot, Resident Evil, Final Fantasy VII. No need to remember when, because everything old is new again. Hey heroes, I'm Josh from Panels to Pixels, and if there's one thing this console generation has been defined by, it's HD remakes, remasters, and re-releases of classic video games. Kids of the 90s and 2000s rejoice! Your childhood favourites have been reheated like week-old pizza, now with enhanced graphics and added E. coli. But if, like me, you're a fan of superhero games, you'd be forgiven for thinking, hey, wait a minute, where's my invite to the mouldy pizza party? Thanks to boring old grown-up things like expired license agreements and oh jeez, it's so boring. Many of the games we love that are based on comics, movies and cartoons have been cast aside by their corporate custodians, condemned to an eternity of obsolescence. Polygon but not forgotten, here are 10 superhero games that need HD remakes or remasters. Number 10. The Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction. I'm always surprised by how few actually good Hulk games there have been. As the patron saint of smashing stuff to smithereens, it feels like the character was born to be a video game protagonist. But if there's one title that we can all agree does the Jade Giant justice, it's this one. 2005's The Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction takes the immeasurable might of the Green Goliath and puts it in the hands of players who just need to let off some steam. Run across walls and leap tall buildings in a single bound in this open world adventure game released for PlayStation 2, Xbox and GameCube. What was so great about Ultimate Destruction was just how expansive the moves list was. From plucking fighter jets out of the sky and pile driving them into the earth, to forging impromptu boxing gloves from crushed cars. This game was all about getting creative with the kind of large-scale chaos that would normally be reserved for cutscenes or quick-time events. I think a lot of players have fond memories of messing around in the sandbox environment, grappling with giant monsters and levelling skyscrapers, and I'd love to see what a version of Hulk Ultimate Destruction would look like in 2020 with the kind of huge open world we're now used to. Number 9. Batman, the Brave and the Bold. Here's a Batman game that is often overlooked because it was a Wii exclusive released between the two greatest Batman games ever made in Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. Batman the Brave and the Bold is a 2010 side-scrolling action platformer based on the cartoon of the same name. When I was a kid, we used to dream of video games that looked indistinguishable from cartoons, and with this old-school Batman title, developer WayForward Technologies set out to bring us just that. I think the result speaks for itself. The Brave and the Bold is chock full of retro campy fun, and considering the game is 10 years old at this point, it's aged pretty remarkably thanks to the 2D art style. An HD remaster that removed the awkward motion controls could get this hidden gem in the hands of a whole new generation of Bat fans. Number 8. X-Men Mutant Academy. After a frosty reception from the fighting game community back in 2017, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was declared pretty much dead on arrival, throwing the franchise's future into uncertainty. DC, meanwhile, have fared better in the fighting game genre with the Injustice series, but maybe it's time for a new contender to enter the arena. And by new, I of course mean old, but with a fresh lick of paint and a few gameplay updates. 2000's X-Men Mutant Academy for the PlayStation really doesn't get enough love considering its place in the lineage of comic book games. The gameplay borrows heavily from the Street Fighter series, but visually, Mutant Academy has more in common with Tekken or Virtua Fighter, with 3D character models of all your favourite mutant heroes. I remember this title coming out around the same time as Neversoft's Spider-Man here in the UK, and it was pretty mind-blowing to see these comic book characters rendered in 3D for the first time. A from-the-ground-up remake of this game would honour its legacy in the pantheon of superhero games, and inject some much-needed new/old blood into the competitive fighting game genre. Number 7. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, is a 4-player beat-em-up released in 2010 to tie into the movie that was based on a graphic novel that was partly inspired by video games. Whew. Developed by Ubisoft Montreal, this digital release-only game mashed up the quirky indie cool of the comics with the gameplay of classic arcade brawlers. Fans have been clamouring for a re-release since the game was removed from online stores back in 2014, and just last month, Brian Lee O'Malley, the cartoonist behind the Scott Pilgrim series, tweeted at Ubisoft, "Bring back the Scott Pilgrim game." To which Ubisoft replied with, how should I put this? This led some online to postulate that it's now a matter of when, not if, we will get a Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, re-release. So, watch this space. Number 6. Spider-Man. Kids today with their open world New Yorks and webs that actually stick to buildings will never know the thrill of booting this bad boy up for the first time and experiencing Spider-Man in 3 goddamn dimensions. Developed by Neversoft and released in 2000, Spider-Man was, in many ways, the Arkham Asylum of its day, raising the bar for all superhero games going forward. Vicarious Visions, the studio behind the Crash Bandicoot and upcoming Tony Hawk's Pro Skater remakes, actually have a history with Neversoft Spider-Man since they developed the Game Boy Color version, plus the game's sequel, Enter Electra. So what I'm saying is, it's not totally outside the realm of possibility that Marvel and Activision could strike up a deal to bring us Spider-Man in high def. In fact, when asked in a recent interview about the possibility of a remake, the original game's lead designer Chad Finley stated that he would absolutely be willing to work on it. There's an extremely dedicated community around this game, and as one of the highest rated titles on the original PlayStation, Spider-Man is crying out for an HD makeover. Or at the very least make low poly Spidey an unlockable suit in Insomniac's Spider-Man sequel. Number 5. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters. Here's another fighting game that has serious comeback potential, and could serve as a suitable surrogate for the Marvel vs. Capcom series. 1993's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters is a pretty straightforward Street Fighter clone, released for the NES, SNES, and Sega Mega Drive. But what it lacks in originality, it more than makes up for in fan service and rad 90s tood. Just imagine a new Ninja Turtles fighting game in the style of the original cartoon, with the cel-shaded graphics of Dragon Ball FighterZ. This quasi-2D art style is just begging for a suitable comic book property to come along and make good use of it. With the Turtles proving to be a hit with fans when they made their unexpected appearance in DC's Injustice 2, I say it's time to bring back the totally tubular Tournament Fighters franchise. Now, I suppose what I'm proposing would technically be more of a reboot than a remake, but hey, what the shell? Cowabunga! Number 4. X-Men 2 Clone Wars. Now that Marvel's team of merry mutants have been reunited with their superhero pals over at the House of Mouse, it's only a matter of time before we start seeing them pop up in video games again. Hopefully some good ones this time. The X-Men have starred in a number of great games over the years, but none of them capture Wolverine and co at the height of mutant mania quite like X-Men 2 Clone Wars. Released in 1995 for the Sega Mega Drive, this game made you feel like you were playing an episode of the 90s X-Men cartoon. The droning electronica soundtrack and gloomy ambience are paired with one of the most atmospheric opening stages ever committed to a 16-bit cartridge. With a whole new generation of fans rediscovering X-Men the animated series thanks to Disney+, I say it's time to inject some of that early 90s flair into a hand-drawn 2D side-scrolling X-Men game. X-Men 2 Clone Wars HD, that's what I'm calling it, would be a prime candidate for an indie-style digital-only release on the PlayStation and Xbox game stores. In fact, while we're on the subject, why aren't there more low-budget indie-type games from Marvel and DC? The comic book medium lends itself perfectly to the 2D action platformer style. That's why I love the 16-bit era of comic book games so much, and it would be nice to have a few smaller releases throughout the year between big AAA titles. Which brings us nicely to number 3, Spider-Man and Venom, Maximum Carnage. Maximum Carnage. I've professed my undying love for this game countless times on the internet until now, and I'll take any opportunity I can to pitch an HD re-release. From the comic book visuals, the shut up and fight gameplay, and the rocking soundtrack, 1994's Spider-Man and Venom Maximum Carnage is one of the unsung heroes of the superhero game genre. This SNES and Mega Drive title is a surprisingly faithful adaptation of the comic book storyline, with cutscenes ripped straight from the pages of Amazing Spider-Man. With the recent release of Streets of Rage 4 proving that there's still plenty of fun to be had in the side-scrolling beat-em-up genre, I see no reason not to bring Maximum Carnage back with these kind of graphics. Get Green Jello back in the studio for an all-new soundtrack, and put out a limited edition red box version, and I'll pre-order at least 10 copies right now. Number 2. Batman Arkham Origins. Much like The Brave and the Bold, this is a Batman game that was overlooked at the time of its release due to its proximity to Arkham City, and because all eyes were on what series creators Rocksteady would do next. But if you've slept on Arkham Origins and still haven't gone back to play it, you are missing out on one of the best stories in the entire Arkham franchise. 2013's Batman Arkham Origins follows the Dark Knight during the longest Christmas Eve of his life, as he must face off against 8 hired assassins, one after another and each more deadly than the last. In this prequel spin-off developed by WB Montreal, we see Bruce Wayne early in his career as the Caped Crusader. Plus, we get the origin of the clown prince of cringe himself, Society Man. This game seriously doesn't get the love it deserves. It's a solid self-contained Arkham game with some of the most memorable boss fights in the franchise. Warner Brothers have done Origins a huge disservice by not making it available on current-gen hardware alongside the main Arkham trilogy. But with a new Batman game being developed by WB Montreal expected to be announced very soon, who knows, maybe more fans will get to discover one of superhero gaming's best kept secrets with a next-gen remaster. As I was putting this video together, I threw up a tweet asking what superhero games people would most like to see get the HD treatment. Psst, follow me on Twitter, @panels2pixels. And there was one game that kept coming up over and over and over again. Number 1. The Crow, City of Angels. No, I'm just kidding, it's Ultimate Spider-Man. 2005's Ultimate Spider-Man was based on the comic series of the same name, and was actually canon to that universe, until maybe it wasn't? Developed by Treyarch and published by Activision, this open-world action game is one of the best Spidey titles ever produced. In my humble opinion, it tightened up and streamlined a lot of the stuff that I don't like about Spider-Man 2, and paired it with a cel-shaded art style that has aged like a full-bodied Chateauneuf-du-Pape. Add to that the ability to play as Venom, which brought shades of Hulk Ultimate Destruction to the open-world environment, and you have a game that is still my go-to for just swinging around while taking in the sights and sounds of New York City. And while the Ultimate Universe may no longer exist in the comics, this game offers an accessible entry point to the world of Peter Parker for fans new and old. An HD treatment similar to that of other cel-shaded titles like The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD would ensure that we can keep enjoying Ultimate Spider-Man for many years to come. If you love comic book video games, then boy howdy, you have come to the right place. Don't forget to subscribe to Panels to Pixels, and give that bell icon a little ring-a-ding-ding so you never miss out on future videos. Thanks for watching, and thanks to these absolute mad lads who support the channel over at patreon.com/panels2pixels. You know, I totally forgot to shout out Talon F54 at the end of my last video for supporting me at the maximum carnage level. Talon F54, you rock, dude. Thank you so much. Anyway, let me know in the comments below what superhero games you want to see receive the microwave pizza treatment, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.